Getting the early numbers could be the key to success when betting on the NFL. That's why we're here to react to the Pinnacle openers and analyse where the market might move. Welcome to the opening line. I was under pressure there. I tried to get us in the same order as last week. I think I just about managed it. But week 6, not quite done and dusted yet. We're turning our attention to week 7, though, for today's episode of the opening line. Once again, I'm joined by Andy Molitor, Eric Eager, and Rufus Peabody to take a look at the early numbers and see what we might see from the week ahead. Bit of a mixed bag from week 6, I guess. Some high expectations, I think, for what on paper was a decent weekend of football. Eric, I'll go to you first this week. How did you find it? How did you get on?
You know, we had Denver, we had Atlanta, so that was nice. We also had Houston, which I feel like against the spread was one of the the more improbable beats of the week. So it was. I thought it was a relatively entertaining 1 o'clock hour, and then the 4 o'clock hour hit, and not only did we have to watch the Jets Dolphins, but the Tampa Bay Green Bay game was actually not even a good game. So it's sort of a mixed bag.
And Andy, what about yourself?
Yeah, had a nice week, winning week so far. Niners last night was a nice way to cap things off. We even middled it with some Rams second half, which was not looking good. Goff was looking pretty stingy with his, putting out any sort of performance. But otherwise a good week. Some people said I had Ravens -7. I got a good number on that. Some people said that was like, oh, that's a really bad beat. And I agree with Eric. I think having the Houston number was probably less probable to lose that spread. Because especially if you had 3.5, 4, you could have lost by 3 in overtime still. Right. Like, you were never dead there. It was there were some people that had some middles on there that were a 3 in overtime would have been a very nice number. So there was a couple ugly endings.
You had third down and from the 5, and they decided to run Wildcat. There's literally only one play they can run, and they still can't stop it, right? So
he's not throwing the ball there.
I think they were going to go for it on 4th down if they got it down to the 1.
Yeah, that's true.
Why else would they run that play?
Vrabel is a pretty smart coach, so I feel like you're probably right, Rufus.
Yeah. And Rufus, I know you had a nice weekend. How was it from a betting perspective?
I finally had a winning NFL weekend. It feels like it's been a while. I went 6-2 actually. So I was on the opposite side of you guys on I was on Philadelphia actually. I got some 10.5 -117, which was so I guess together it's a good portfolio.
Somebody won.
I took a little bit of Tennessee at -3. I didn't know how much to value exactly coming up the short week. I figured kind of like playing on a Thursday, but both teams are playing on a Thursday generally. Not, So yeah, it was a good week for me. Happy about that. Lost on the Jets, of course, but that's to be expected.
You could just run.
What the Jets covered the second half.
Yeah, I didn't even bet them. I didn't even bet the second half. I had no value there. But yeah, you're right. It was the late games weren't entertaining, but I was actually watching the final round of the CJ Cup instead.
All right, we'll get on to some of the games from week 7 then. We got Giants at the Eagles, Philadelphia. We had a little chat just before we actually went live. They were 5.5-point favorites, moved to 6.5. Totals at 45, looks pretty split. So we had the Giants got the win against Washington football team. Eagles was a weird one against the Ravens, nearly covered. A lot has changed, I guess, since Sunday already. But I guess the question here is the market's perception of Philadelphia getting to a point now where you can take advantage, or has what's just happened kind of changed that again, and we could see another week of them kind of dropping down? Open floor. I'll let whoever wants to take it go first.
Well, I guess I'll go first here because I do have something a little bit to say regarding Philadelphia and Baltimore, and it's like the Saints game earlier this season in terms of penalty yardage. Philadelphia was penalized 112 fewer yards than Baltimore in that game. Like Baltimore, their play success on early downs was wrong tab. Their play success on early downs was 49%, which isn't that bad. Yet they averaged 9.7 yards to go on third down, and with 16 third down attempts. So penalties really, really affected them there. So in Philadelphia, Their comeback, I mean, I think, largely it was a few big plays. It wasn't sustained drives. That first half, I thought they were going to bench Wentz at one point. I hoped they would bench Wentz. I wanted to see what Jalen Hurts would be capable of. Didn't they have? I think they didn't have a first down. They had 3 and outs for their first, I think, 6 possessions or so. So it was. I think that's a little bit. I mean, I think the score is a little bit misleading.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you can still get a 6.5, I think there's a ton of value on the Giants, and not because I think the Giants are all that good. In fact, they have a negative, Daniel Jones, who dropped back to pass, is negative 0.08 expected points, but Carson Wentz at negative 0.12. And like they're two teams that have faced a similarly easy schedule in my estimation. Wentz has almost as many negative plays as positive plays. And 1.5 times as many turnover-worthy plays. I mean, he's producing a turnover-worthy play at a rate twice as high as Daniel Jones. And I look at a game like this and I think, like, okay, both of these teams are going to kind of muck it up. What's the thing that could get this game out towards a touchdown? And it's turnovers. And I think actually Philadelphia is a bigger risk of that than the New York Giants. So weirdly, especially given the injuries to the skill positions. And the one thing, I mean, Philly has a really good young receiver in Fulgham, but there's exactly one good defensive player on the Giants, and his name's James Bradbury, and he does a pretty good job against opposing number 1 receivers. So I think this game matches up actually pretty well for the Giants.
Yeah, I took an early 5.5 on the Eagles. I'm regretting it. I'm probably buying out with 6.5 here, especially with I didn't think the Sanders injury was that bad. He's out for 1 to 2 weeks. Ertz is out for multiple weeks. Like, just the same story as we had last year for Philly, just compounding injuries. You want to talk again? It's funny, like you say, Bradbury's your lockdown guy. Take away part of the field. Who do you put him on? You put him on the best receiver, which at this point is probably Fulgham, which is wild. If you can take away Fulgham and Ertz is hurt and everyone, I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do now. I didn't think we'd see that many lingering injuries. I guess looking forward here, seeing what the status of Deshaun and some of the other guys are, but I'm probably buying out of this. It was a weird game. Wentz, I mean, I predicted Wentz would get hurried, hit, sacked. He got sacked, I think, 6 times. It was just a goofy second half. You said Rufus mentioned the penalties, 12 penalties is a lot of penalties. And it was concerning, I guess, if you're looking at Baltimore long term, the inability to put the game away by, racking together some first downs, and the penalties come back into that. It's tough when all of a sudden it's 1st and 19 after you run, when you have a holding call on a first down. It really makes it difficult, and I guess credit to Wentz and the Eagles for going after it, getting nuts at the end. I was pretty happy having the 7. I almost bought back on some 10.5, regret that now. I thought it was I was like, I get happy when it lands like 8, and other people would have bet like Baltimore minus 8.5 or something, just to feel smug about the early number, but wasn't meant to be. Yeah, kind of a goofy. There were 6 fumbles, only 1 lost. Like the fumble luck was goofy, the penalties were goofy, but yeah, it's hard to say nice things about the Philly offense right now and guys, the offensive line.
What do you guys think about the NFC East future currently? Because at least last time I saw it, early in the week, it was Dallas minus 120. I saw minus 155 after the games yesterday. Like, I know you guys, Drew, you guys, Andy, are on Dallas tonight. I mean, is there a way to sort of capitalize on that, sort of secondarily by taking Dallas in the NFC East? Because the way that I look at it, they're like really the only team that I can say anything nice about in that division at all.
Yeah, it's probably short. It should probably be like, 1 to 2. Those British odds for Ben. I gave him the fractional there. But I looked at that. Not only that, but if you do think Dallas gets it done and gets it done in spades, I think the Arizona-Seattle number moves next week, and you can take an early number on Seattle if you like that, even with their defensive secondary. And the same thing goes for what is Dallas-Washington, if you want to take early numbers on that. So, there's a few ways to – essentially you're doubling down on how you feel about a game, but I think maybe the safest of them all would be probably taking some division future for Dallas at that price. Just it might be like an 8-win team, which sucks. I have a season win total on them at 9, which is feeling like it's a long ways off.
Or Andy, if you have a book that lets you, the best case there would be to parlay Dallas with Dallas tonight with Seattle next week.
That's not bad.
I feel like I'm giving out a little trick here, but I mean, I feel like, most books. I mean, if you tried to parlay Arizona with Arizona next week, most people would see. But if you're parlaying, if you're parlaying the teams they're facing, it's you might be able to get away with it.
That's a sneaky monkey. I like that.
On the, I mean, it's interesting the topic of futures that you brought up, Eric, and Andy, you said about the injury problems and how that is now almost kind of like a consistent theme going back to last year. How much of that goes into consideration when you're looking at like win totals or division and stuff like that? Is that something that like you can really anticipate? Is it just bad luck for the Eagles that it's the second season in a row, or is there more to it than that, do you think?
Well, I mean, we have like a model basically for, we don't implicitly put injury luck in there other than, the differential between the quarterbacks, which is not, the case here. But, I think you do have to put enough uncertainty in your model, to sort of like have these correlated things happen. So I guess my answer is, you put uncertainty in there. But I think in the case of Philly, we haven't like put it any more in there than, any other team, which I think is probably wrong given that, Rufus said the other day that there's some evidence that they get more injured, than other teams do.
Or that injuries do have some predictive value from season to season.
Right.
But I think what Eric mentioned about putting enough uncertainty in there is key. And so what I do, we look at how the Massey Peabody ratings actually move week to week in the past and are able to model. And I think we do a better job of this than a lot of other people out there, where you see projections that seem like way overconfident in how, the best team in the NFL suddenly is, for 35% to win the Super Bowl or something like that. Which, the thing is, so many things can happen. And so you need to model out the fact that, you have a team that might be like the best team in the NFL, 7 points better than average right now. But an injury happens, underperformance happens. A lot of injuries happen, and they can go down. They can go up or they can go down. And so I think, I think that's something that isn't really considered and by most. Well, I'd say most recreational bettors when they're betting stuff before the season. You're not able to just do that like in an Excel sheet simply. You know what I mean? In an Excel sheet, you're saying this team's 7 points better than this team. Their probability of winning this game is 70 some odd percent. Like, this is how many wins they're going to have. Let's look at the distribution of that. Whereas, they might not actually be 70% if this game is like 10 weeks down the line. So,
well, right. I mean, the thing is like if the Jets are in the playoffs, they're no longer the Jets anymore, right? Like, you have to model that into your simulation,
Exactly.
And
it's a cruel example to pick.
Well, but yeah, like I always said, Buffalo. Like, if Buffalo is the 1 seed in the AFC, like Josh Allen has clearly performed well, right? And so when you have the quarterback comparison in your simulation, like he can't be like a 4 out of 10. He's got to be like a 7 or 8 out of 10. And that's exactly what Rufus. I mean, that's how, not to name names, but that's how people end up with 40% Super Bowl probability or whatever. It's because they don't take those things into consideration. And there's a number of different ways to do it. And I think, most people that do it different ways, but like you have to account for, if this team has actually played well, then they've changed fundamentally from your prior.
Right. But there needs to be randomness around it too, because you can have a team that won a game by 28 points when they were a 7-point favorite and they actually underperformed. They just got lucky.
Yeah.
So, but
the injury stuff too. A lot of that is, it's just so hard. We're way off that, but the injury stuff, like you think, and I think Football Outsiders has some ratings on that as well, as far as like, their injury luck, or as far as any cluster injuries, games missed at certain positional groups, and that stuff is great for contextualizing last year and looking at reasons why you want to shape your priors. But I don't think it's very good for anything forward-facing. Like, it's really hard to say, there'll be injury luck regression for this team. I don't think anyone has any proof that that's, true over a 16-game sample or 1 year. Like, I don't think you can take that and use it as some sort of predictive, nature as far as how they were injured last year, really injured. They'll probably regress this year. Like, there are just players. They're maybe mad,
organizations. I think there's organizations.
Bad organizations.
Too.
Bad
if you think
staffs.
about it, they set like, okay, this is how we're going to do. This is the training regimen. We're going to stretch this. We're going to practice this way.
Yeah, it systemic probably. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Real quick note on the dynamic uncertainty though. I mean, you had books pricing in New Jersey. I think it was BetMGM that priced Kansas City and Baltimore each at 2,500 to 1 to have 0 to 4 wins this season. Both of which I took and will stand to make 6 figures if either of those happen. I don't think either of them are possible anymore, but still, that's a Mahomes injury or a Lamar Jackson injury, and suddenly, I'm alive.
Right. Well, we've seen that before. I mean, I think of like the Houston Texans the one year where they had Lamar Jackson look great, tears his ACL in practice, and now they're giving Cleveland the 4th overall pick, right? Like those are the things that people don't take into consideration, the tail risk. Especially the low end.
The low tail is always long.
Literally, I have like a bet for Seattle 0 to 4 wins, and also a bet on Seattle to win exactly 14 games at the same book somehow.
Yeah,
it makes
I like that.
That's crazy.
All right, well, I'll get us on to our next game. We've got Cleveland Browns at Cincinnati Bengals. We've got -3.5 on the Browns. 52-point over under. It's looking like it could bump up, I think. This one, I don't think Mayfield's injured. He basically just took a bit of a battering, didn't he? I think it was his ribs, or he had some pre-existing issues. As far as I'm aware, he's going to play. It's not that bad. But the Bengals with Burrow seems to just be up and down. Nearly got a win against the Colts. Are the Browns this close to the Bengals? Should it be a bigger spread, Eric?
I actually make this game about 3. So Burrow has been encouraging. I don't think he's necessarily good, but Mayfield has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the entire NFL this year so far. He's going downfield a little bit, but for example, and again, these are things that might regress. But going into the game yesterday, he had a 30 passer rating when under pressure. He only completed 57% of his passes when using play action. Like those things should regress, but at the same time, it also might be basically something that's arising from him just not being very good. They're giving him very, very good circumstances, and he's just not capitalizing on them. And so, this one I'm happy to lay off of just because I think Burrow can be a mess in some of these games you saw just last week against the Ravens, but I don't think Mayfield's a good enough quarterback to capitalize on a team like the Bengals right now.
Yeah, I make it even less than that if I go by just pure numbers and what I've had to do with. I think Baker's average. I think Baker with hurt ribs is bad, and I think Baker with hurt ribs going against the Pittsburgh defense was going to be a nightmare, and it was. And they pulled him out, which is probably the right call. I don't think it was like, oh, he's so injured or ineffective. It was similar to the Jimmy G pulling from 2 weeks ago, where it's like this game's out of hand. He's kind of dinged up. Let's not do anything silly. But again, I'm not high on Baker and like my quarterback numbers. I think he's been a product of having some decent talent, and I don't know, people remember him from college. I'm not sure where people are getting the fact that he should be in this upper echelon or even the top half at some point. So I probably won't bet this. I think a big part of what we saw was the front 7 for Pittsburgh getting after Cleveland. I just don't think Cincinnati can replicate that with what they have. I don't think they can get after Baker like, obviously like Pittsburgh. That it's a far cry from the Pittsburgh front 7 to what we see in Cincinnati. I make the number 3-ish, but I'm probably going to lay off. I had my share of betting Cincinnati last week. I was a little nervous. I had a 9.5, and I'm like thinking of, man, if 2 touchdowns, this is dead. Like, well, I'm not getting this. They're done. Phillip Rivers has got me here, but it would be Cincy or pass, and God, maybe an under.
I had a Cincy second half bet last week, which I felt like a missed field goal, and there's something else I felt like, but Cleveland, I was like, is this spreadsheet wrong? Their play success on late downs was 6.7%. Like I can't, there's not another single digit number I've seen this season. Literally 1 for 15 on third and fourth down. So based on that, you say, okay, they must have been unlucky, and they probably were. I mean, their average yards to go on third down was only 6.2 yards, so not extreme, but they averaged 4.15 yards per play. And that's, I mean, I think, let's see what the Jets average, 3.6. That's Jets territory. So, yeah, that's not good. I make the number 1.8. So I lean to Cincinnati. I'm not going to play it right at 3, but I'd probably, if 3.5 flat potentially. I mean, right now it was at 3.5, it looks like, and it's dropped down. But it's one of those, I'm going to see about that. It's one we haven't actually played yet, but it's a marginal one. I'll leave it at that.
That's fair.
I think we're getting to territory where these numbers are, I think a lot of the games, they're looking pretty tight. So it'll be interesting to see where the discussion goes, because the next one, looking at it, the Lions at the Falcons, the Lions aren't great. Maybe a bit better than the Falcons. Falcons obviously got their first win at Minnesota, 1-5. Andy's big sigh. What we got on this one? We've got Falcons -3, big total 56.5. I'm not sure it's going to move, but if it does, probably on the lines in the under, unless someone thinks otherwise, or do we agree with that? What are we thinking?
I would think moves towards the Lions. I make it 2. I thought, and I just think that because I was low on Detroit last week, and the fact that I kind of like them. I mean, I guess I was low on Atlanta last week too, but my game grades, I had Detroit actually playing the better game than Atlanta. It was close. It was by 1/10 of a point, but so yeah, I thought they held. I think Jacksonville's defense or offense isn't, well, it's better than their defense. It isn't that bad, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. I probably am, but they held Jacksonville only 38% play success. And Atlanta played well, but they didn't play like win by 17 well. They were fortunate to have a lot of short fields, and they got +2 turnovers. So
yeah, I make it about 1, and I look at this game. I follow the Vikings relatively closely, and this was another game where Minnesota was let back into the game by their opponent. Like Brian Hill turned the ball over, when the game was still in doubt. Atlanta got a 4th down stop near, in the red zone. Like, there were a lot of things where that game could have been close, and they broke towards the Falcons. Detroit's a team that I was higher on this going into the season than the Falcons. And we've started to see over the last 3 games where they've had Kenny Golladay that their offense can actually move the football downfield. Stafford's numbers are creeping up. Atlanta, I don't know, man. Like I can't lay points with Atlanta. I'd probably would take Detroit even if it's just 3 here.
Yeah, I make it like 2.5. This was one, Rufus mentioned he was a little behind on things this week. The Minnesota-Atlanta box score is not one I've gotten to yet. And I've purposely, that's the paper that you shuffled to the bottom of the pile. Because there's, the game was over almost. It should have been more over than it was. You throw 3 first-half picks, including the first offensive play, you're not going to have a good time, especially when all of a sudden the Atlanta offense is clicking a little. I think even they were lucky that they kicked a couple field goals. They should have been down much more. And then just trying to pick apart the second half and look at, when did garbage time actually start for this game? Because Kirk Cousins was a garbage time magician. This box score is very wonky because of just Jefferson. Jefferson is setting rookie records for most yards in a game. Not records, but it's been a few years since a rookie had a $170 like he did. And it's not even in a competitive game. It's just garbage time. It is wild how bad Minnesota played on defense. I guess not wild. The rookie corners. What's it? Dantzler. What's the other one? Gladney,
and then they had some guy named Harrison Hand playing a lot yesterday.
That's a great name.
The secondary, it ain't it right now. So, I don't know if I can give Atlanta some huge bump here. I have them slightly, like a half point better than, maybe 3/4 of a point. I'd have to check. I made it like 2.5-ish. So, little value on Detroit. Maybe if you want to get in bed with an under, this might be the one. If Detroit starts running the ball like they like to.
The score yesterday, as far as the over, was extremely fluky at 54. I know I bet over, and I thought it didn't have a chance. And then, you had the three, you had the touchdowns at the end. I have a friend who basically won a DFS pot based upon Cousins and Jefferson's garbage time, plays. And it's like, the issue here is I think this game ends up being close, and both teams when the game is close kind of like to muck it up a little. Like, Detroit gives the ball to Adrian Peterson 15 times a game. Now, I know they gave it to Swift too, but like, I think if you look at this total, I think it's too high for two teams that like to play the way that they do, which is slow. But both defenses are bad, so I don't know if you can like really support an under either.
Yeah. And Andy,
you'll need red zone regression. Like, you need to get lucky in the red zone a little, I think.
To echo what Andy said, I mean, if like literally looking at the yards per play, like Minnesota was 7.3 yards per play and Atlanta was 5.9, and that's not including kneel downs, but it is. But I still had like Atlanta grade out substantially better because Minnesota was playing in a lot of, it was garbage time, and they were in game situations where they were going to be able to get more yards. So,
well, we're 3 games in, and I think each one it's easy to make a case for the under. And I asked something last week about, are we just seeing like a bit of regression in terms of the scores, or do you think we're seeing a product of bookmakers putting totals too high that people are now turning around and thinking like, the joke was a couple of weeks in, it was like, you don't bet an under, it's always the over. And there was some kind of logic there for people, but now it seems like unders are beginning to become a lot more appealing. Is there anything in that, do you think?
Personally, I do.
Eventually, the market's going to reach the peak. Like, there's a range of this. Scoring's not just going to. It's not some slope where scoring's just going to keep going up. Like, it's going to peak, and the totals. The market's going to get topped out, and there's going to be some value on some of these unders. There's probably value now, but it's. And Rufus said this the other day. And I'm in the same boat. I'm gun shy. I'm terrified. Like, there's been a handful of second half unders I've loved, and I've laid off most of them because it's just like, man, what am I doing? Like, do I really think like 24.5? That feels like we get there in the third quarter. Yeah. And last night was another one of them where I kind of like the under, stayed away, ended up getting a sketchy win with the Rams.
I actually took some under there, and I had the Atlanta second half over, so I felt good about that. I had the Giants second half money line, which was, I felt like a little bad break there. But in terms of where the totals have been going, we had Rob on that the Process podcast last week, and he said that scoring's been up 7 points, and like market's maybe adjusting 5 points now, and he thinks it's all basically real. It's not just the more that they aren't calling offensive holding and they're calling more defensive pass interference calls. It's just the way the league, the style of play, and more teams being more aggressive and being more analytically driven. If you look at the Cleveland looking at the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, for example, Cleveland went for it 4th and 1 at their own 29-yard line early in the second half, went for it, again, like basically they were playing smart because they were down 3 scores, and you need to be embracing that variance because you don't get any extra credit unless you go down to like the freaking 6th tiebreaker or something for, how much you lose by, or how much you win or lose by. But I still think, I don't think that there was an overnight shift in terms of the analytics. I think it's been a gradual thing overall. And so for that reason, I don't sort of see, I don't see it as 7 points relative to last year at this point. And so I do think, especially now getting into divisional games where there is a little more familiarity and all that, like and as the weather gets colder, you see this every year. You're going to see conditions where it's harder to throw the ball well. You'll see teams running the ball more, and I think
possibly tonight.
Well, and you're going to see it. I think, and not to use this just as anecdotal, but like you're going to see games like Tampa Bay, Green Bay, where you were getting, I think, historically close games early in the season too, which yield all the things that Rufus is talking about, like the going for 2 when you're down 9, like is a overplay, because if you make it, then like overtime's more likely, right? If you don't make it, then like you speed the game up and try to get more possessions, right? Because of the nature, like when you settle for being down 8, you play the game more slowly because you think it's a 1 possession game. Like there are a number of situations, and like I can't think of one of those situations that plays to the under, right? Like being more, the teams running play action 10 to 15% more than they were 2-3 years ago. You know, defenses are not all of a sudden in a pandemic season going to get better at covering one of the hardest plays in football, you know? So like I think all of those are reasons why the over is not some like referee induced thing and actually real. But, you know, as the season progresses, we might get more Dolphins Jets games where it's just like, you play a half football, teams go through the motions in the second half and the game lands 24, or like Tampa Bay, runs out the clock, all that kind of stuff. I think might happen more as these teams get separated a little bit as the season progresses.
I want to look at that. I think you made a really good point about the games being closer, and I actually want to. I'm gonna actually pull it up, and I'm kind of curious where it relates to historical averages.
Yeah, because we like to think of high spread games having more variance, but I think that and that's probably, but like when the games actually play out to be kind of close, then there is just more extending of the game, and you see, I think, especially in college, right? Like where being up 10 in the NFL, like teams generally will like take a knee, but college teams want to like cover the, like they still run the football and make excruciatingly bad beats for unders and things like that.
Yeah, thanks,
you see it in the second half totals all the time, and a lot more in college than you do in the NFL. But I mean, look at the Atlanta Minnesota game. What was it 20-0 at halftime? Is that right?
Yeah.
20-0 at halftime. I thought the market kind of overreacted to the fact that it was such a blowout. But I think, what was the game total on that?
54 was the total.
3.5, 54.
And you saw like 25 for the second half. So
yeah. And I haven't seen anyone like, we've looked at totals are higher, scoring is higher, but I haven't had anyone look into like margin of victory if there's some sort of weird pattern in there. Like that would be interesting. And because somebody did bring that up the other day, and it was something we were doing last summer with teasers. Just to we made a chart just to kind of explain why a Wong teaser is a Wong teaser. Like this is the percentage of times it lands in these numbers, and something popped up where like teasing from 11 to 5 was a good teaser. Like there's like a secondary Wong teaser, and I think that signal's actually getting stronger as like less games are falling on 3. 3's not what it was. And it's weird. It's like shifting to the 10 somehow. And again, you don't get enough sample to really suss some of this stuff out. But I guess we haven't updated the margin of victory stuff at all.
But I mean, the other thing I think that sort of works against the Wong teaser is the fact that you're seeing more scoring, which means more variance in spread outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, Wong teasers, I think books are fine with booking it. I don't know what you're getting generally these days. A 2-team 6-teamer. A 2-team 6-teamer minus 110 is pretty rare these days, isn't it?
It's like out of like 13 outs, like 2 places let me have that.
Exactly.
Some of these legal ones are minus 140.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
Right.
It's crazy,
basically, you're not going to get a 6-team or 6.2-team teaser at minus 110 at like a legit respected book generally.
Yeah, like
right.
Buckeye will let you have it.
Exactly.
Couple, off-screen stuff, but it's hard to get. So that's something. And you're not getting totals. You don't see a 39 on the board anymore.
Right.
Like, give me an 8-point favorite on a 39. Like I'll tease that with 8 different things.
Exactly. When you're having 39 versus a 56 are completely different in terms of the variance and the cover rate, or sorry, the cover margin. So that 6 points is worth a lot more with the total of 38.
Right, I'm gonna move us on to our next game, and I think we're 3 games in, and Eric's managed to make a Jets reference for every game so far.
Sorry, I was on the Jets too, so I'm just it's not a. I've been on the Jets, I think, every week too. I don't know why Rufus gets all the shit for it.
I had both teams to score no.
Right, we got the Panthers at the Saints, -7.5 on the Saints, 51-point total on the board. Probably another one where I think you can make a case for both sides. It's not the Jets, but we'll head to someone that's going to start betting with the Saints. Are you, Rufus, or is the number right for you on this?
I mean, yeah. I'm gonna bet the Saints here. As much as it scares me, as much as I feel like it's not gonna win. I mean, my number is in the double digits there, and it's largely just based on my prior for the Saints and their offense. Because if I made it just based on this season alone, I'd only make it 6. So it's one that I'm gonna sort of hold my nose and just and play it.
It kind of probably begs the question then, and like jokes aside about the Jets and the Saints, like how far do you get into the season before you begin to think like, I feel my number's off. I don't know if I want to bet this with my number, but it's the disparity is so big that you begin to kind of dig into things a little bit more and kind of look at it and analyze stuff and maybe think, why is that discrepancy there?
So as the season goes, I actually... the discrepancy ends up getting smaller generally throughout the season because we have a bunch of games that have been played, and it's not like I'm going to evaluate the Saints as having played that much better or that much worse than the market is. There are differences for sure, but it's going to be relatively close. And I think whereas how much to weight the prior is and what the prior is and all that is something that I think there are more market differences. So, it is something where I will, since I know that I've been off market on a team, I'm going to use a little bit of a higher threshold there because I do know there's wisdom in the market versus in another situation where I have 2 teams that I have been right on market with. If I have a smaller edge, I'm more inclined to play that.
I dig that. Yeah, I make it 6 on a neutral. Little bit of home, little bit of coming off a bye. Numbers probably about right for me. Drew tried to make a case for Carolina. I think Drew actually took some Carolina last night at 7.5, which it might come down to 7. I'd be tempted with that, but probably staying off it. Again, if it closes 7.5, you'd be tempted to throw it in a teaser. But again, you have a total above 50 because all the totals are above 50 now. I think the New Orleans defense still can play a lot better. I don't know if my priors are too strong in the defense. Michael Thomas back. He's not going to punch anybody this week. I'd lean New Orleans at a 7. If you get a flat 7, I'm going to have to think pretty hard about it. But
if you don't take a flat 7, I think there's something wrong with you. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, like it's still Carolina. Like we saw what Carolina really is. They finally played a good defense. The 3, I made all these cases for the damn Bears and then I didn't bet them.
You didn't?
Really drove me nuts. I had them in like one teaser. So it drove me up a wall that I didn't take them because I made a lot of cases for the Bears defense, really exposing that Carolina wasn't this good offense. And I think we might see more of that. I don't know if it's going to take a lot of points for the Saints to cover this. So, yeah, flat 7, I'm probably in.
I mean, if you look at it, like I'm literally looking at my numbers on the defenses right now, and the Saints are what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th in the NFL in terms of yards per play allowed. And that's not adjusting for garbage time. This is literally just it's adjusting for quarterback kneel downs, and they've given up 3.6 yards per rush to running backs, only 46% play success. They've given up a few big plays. 10 of what I call big pass plays, and which I believe are 25 yards or more. I don't remember if that's so. Only 17% of plays over 10 yards. They've just the play success on late downs is 52%. I feel like and they've just had these bad penalties. It's definitely been the secondary that's been the issue, but and penalties in the defensive secondary on big plays. But I think they've played substantially better than most people think.
Yeah, I think defensively they have the goods. Offensively, Thomas is a thing, right? Breeze and Bridgewater have about the exact same statistics, which is weird. If you throw out drops and throwaways, they're about as accurate as each other. EPA is about 1/100th of a point different between the two. Positively graded plays, negatively graded plays. Actually, Bridgewater's a little bit more turnover prone, weirdly. So it really comes down to, in this one, how much do you trust Michael Thomas coming back versus a Carolina defense that is – it's been glossed over, but they're low-key one of the worst in the entire NFL. And so I do trust Peyton off of a bye against it. I think it's New Orleans or nothing here.
All right, well then we got Green Bay at Houston Texans. Kind of different results for these two teams, or same result but kind of different levels of disappointment. I think the Packers were just beat out by Tampa Bay. Texans, as we said, bit of a bad beat. Anyone on them turned over in overtime. Pinnacle's at -3.5 on the Packers. I think it started at -3. I mean, I feel like they could have hung this total up at 60 and people probably would have taken it. It's 56 at the moment, I think. Is that 56.5? No, 56, sorry. Is there any interest in this one? And Eric, I'll go to you. Was Aaron Rodgers elite at the weekend? Was he not elite? I'm not too sure.
Well, I said Bridgewater and Breeze were similar. Weirdly, despite their team's records, Watson and Rodgers are similar. Both are accurate in about 75% of their passes. Both are earning, similar grades. Both are getting similar support, and both have a lot of big-time throws and relatively few turnover-worthy plays. Now, Rodgers, packed them all into one game. But Watson's playing far better than the quarterback of a 1-5 team would suggest. The issue here, though, in my estimation, is just that, and this is why I think I'm on Green Bay, is just the defenses. There's a drastic difference. Packers defense is merely average, which you can win with in the NFL, and Houston's defense is probably, if not the worst, one of the 2 or 3 worst in the NFL. So I think Green Bay bounces back a little bit here.
Yeah, it's a drastic step down in defense. Houston is a below-average defense. Probably have them around 20th. And Tampa, I guess, hat tip to the game plan from Tampa. Like, get Rodgers moving around, got him under pressure. He made some bad throws. That first interception was just gross. Like, I don't know what he was – for a guy who hadn't done that all year. And just to throw that, not lazy, but it felt like a lazy pass out to the edge. And I mean, it was an easy pick six. He almost threw another pick six, and he just wasn't right from there. That game turned on a dime. I wasn't really keen on anything Tampa did offensively. Brady was okay. Like, it was weird to see Gronk do anything. The corpse of Gronk. That's when I knew they were in trouble. I'm like, oh shit, Gronk scored. Things are going badly here. So, I put a lot of that game on the Tampa Bay defense. They played well, and Houston not even close. I make this. I don't know where you guys have Houston compared to an average team. I think I have them at like a -2.5. Like, they're better than a 1-5 team.
Oh, really?
But
I have them at +0.9.
We might disagree on this one then. Yeah, they have a good quarterback and it's a 1-5 team with a very tough schedule. But at the same time, I make this number like 5 on a neutral.
They played well. They played well the last 2 weeks. I mean, how much of it was Bill O'Brien? I mean, you see, and obviously this part isn't in my model, but you see what the players have said, and I guess more importantly, what they haven't said. And so, they have a lot of. I mean, they still do have a good amount of talent. You're right, but not as much on the defensive side of the ball. But I actually like Houston here. I grabbed a little bit of +3.5, -115. I do think you're right. It might be. I'm not expecting a ton of favorable line movement, actually, given what you guys said. But I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to take Houston here.
What do you think on that total? I don't know if they can put that one high enough.
It's ludicrous.
Watson's looking good.
I mean, Green Bay though, 3.34 yards per play last week.
Dude, unreal.
Tampa played phenomenal on defense, and you're right. It did turn on a dime. Like, it was 10-0. It looked like Green Bay was honestly the first quarter. You thought Green Bay might run away with it.
10-0. Yeah, 10-0 with the ball. Like, oh, they're gonna go score another time here. I was sad it was 14-0. I thought some of the Tampa truthers were gonna get put down, but the game plan, what Arians put together with that defense, getting Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable, it really, really worked. So, got to reevaluate Green Bay a little. I don't have a hard lean on either side here. I kind of want to play the over.
When I look though at this matchup, Green Bay has a similar offense to Tennessee, right? I mean, LaFleur was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee prior to leaving, and Houston is just, I mean, Derrick Henry is fast, but not fast enough to outrun an entire defense for 90 yards unless that defense is the Houston Texans. So
or
like
the Jaguars.
Or the Jaguars. Well, that was more of like wasn't it just stiff? Didn't he like carry a guy for 20 yards?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I think you see some Aaron Jones. I think you see some play action. The linebackers for Houston are atrocious. And you see more of Devontae Adams, I think, in the game whereas Tampa Bay did a really good job with those corners of sort of minimizing Rodgers hits the back foot and is able to confidently throw the ball. So I don't know, but at the same time, Green Bay's defense is not particularly good, and Houston's offense is good. And to your point, Rufus, they not only have played well the last 2 weeks, they hung with Minnesota, they hung with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh at least is still undefeated. Like they're not a 1-5 team.
Watson graded out better than Mahomes in week 1. Like he played well. Watson has made a number of throws and a lot of drops and things like that have sort of ruined his outcomes. But I mean, like I said, I'm looking at my quarterback sheet, and he's in the top 5 with Wilson, Tannehill, Rodgers, Allen, and Watson. So
Tannehill,
Tannehill's been amazing.
Oh, top 5 in how they've played so far this season.
And how they played this year. Yeah, not
okay.
my how good they are, but like how they perform. Okay. And the 3 guys ahead of them all are averaging a quarter of an expected point per play better, per pass attempt. Watson's at like 0.19, just sort of showing that like the results haven't really met the process so far yet for him, which is interesting.
Well, let's move on to the next game. We got Pittsburgh Steelers at the Tennessee Titans. Pittsburgh I was thinking this one was going to move. They're marginal favorites. I think they started at -1. They're -1.5. I think it's making its way there slightly, maybe to a 3. I'm not too sure if it's got it in it, but the total is 52 on this one as well. Potentially here, given the 2 results, we saw the Steelers just dominated the weekend. We talked about the Titans just about getting there against the Texans. Are we seeing kind of people buying into the Steelers, selling on the Titans, and that's the move here? Or is it more that it actually makes sense kind of looking outside of those 2 performances?
Andy, I know you're high on Pittsburgh.
I'm so high on Pittsburgh. When I also like, it's funny. I went back to find this. This was yesterday at like noon. I said it to Drew in DMs. I said Tannehill is close to being a top 5 quarterback right now, just like in the league right now. It's amazing how getting away from like we were just joking 2 years ago when we said there might be a quarterback controversy in Tennessee. Like when he moved up there with Marcus, it's wild how far he's come. And this team does have some issues, but they're playing well. They haven't lost. I guarantee they practiced when they were off. Like they're cheating. Like they went to like 8 different private schools and practiced different days because we saw what New England looked like coming off no practices. Tennessee practiced. They look good. The defense was giving up a lot, but you got to give a lot to that to Watson. Watson played great, and they do still. You lose Hopkins, they still have weapons down there, and we saw some nice plays from was it Fuller with the longer one?
Fuller got behind him, yeah.
Yeah, it's still a very good offense. So Tennessee losing Lewan is massive. He's one of the best tackles in the league. But then at the same time, you throw in Devin Bush, who I'm pretty sure calls the plays for that defense. Like, I don't know who grabs the mic now. So my head's spun around on this one yet. I don't have a strong lean. I think the number's probably pretty close to where it needs to be. The total, I want to say the total's pretty high because I think Pittsburgh's touchdown rate it's high. Like, they're not kicking field goals, man. I think the red zone, I'd have to look at what Pittsburgh's red zone rate is. I feel like a lot of them weren't even in the red zone. They're getting some longer touchdowns, but I think both these teams' touchdown rates probably regress. Again, if you want to get in front of a train and bet an under with 2 offenses that have looked really good, have at it. I probably won't, but I don't have a strong take on this one until I kind of look at what's going to happen with some of the replacements on the offensive line and the defense. Although, God, Pittsburgh's defense really got after Baker. I enjoyed that. I don't like Baker as a person, so like I bet on Pittsburgh, and also I just dislike him. So anecdotally, that was nice.
Well, here's the thing about Tannehill that's interesting. So we do like positively graded plays, negatively graded plays, and then like big time plays, turnover worthy plays. Tannehill is in the bottom half of the league in big time throws that are like down the field, strikes that are huge gainers. He leads the league currently in percentage of dropbacks that are positively graded, and he's second best in avoiding negatively graded plays. The guy is hitting just a lot of doubles, right? Like this is Jameis Winston if Jameis didn't throw interceptions. He's the 10 to 19 area is the most valuable area in football, and Tannehill is peppering it, with play action. And you said they're going to have a different middle linebacker this week, and that's Jonnu Smith is hurt, I know, and that could hamper things a bit. But they were throwing to some tight end in Ferkser yesterday, and he was having production. I kind of like the Tennessee Titans have been involved in basically 75% of their games have been overs since Tannehill took over. Like, I think this is a really fun game, high scoring, and I'm not exactly sure why Tennessee is an underdog in this game, frankly.
I'm kind of with you on that, actually. I make Tennessee a 1.2 point favorite, and I took a little bit of +2, or my partner took a little +2 -105. That's logged in our sheet at least. So I know I have something on Tennessee. And I just wanted to say for a second how much I appreciate what Mike Vrabel did at the end of the game there. The intentional 12 men on the field and then faking being upset about it so Crennel wouldn't know it was up and decline the penalty. That was next level.
If somebody told you guys that story and then redacted the teams and the names of the coaches and everything,
Belichick,
and yeah, exactly, like you guess, but you like 800%, everybody just guesses Belichick, which he comes from that tree, but
he played under Belichick.
It was something.
He did it.
Yeah, it's just a way of thinking,
He did it to Belichick last year, though, in the playoff game because I think they were outside the 4-minute, and they took like a couple of delay of game penalties that drained the clock all the way down to the 4-minute. Like he clearly thinks about these things, and I know Tennessee gets a decent amount of flack because either their analytics department is only like 1 or 2 people, or it's scant. I can't remember exactly but people are like, well, they're actually. I mean, a coach that simply thinks about these edge cases to me is far more valuable necessarily than like 20, than having like one more quant than another team, right? Like this is. To me, this is a great way to ooze, value. And those seconds mattered, right? The 40 seconds, they scored with 4 seconds left to tie the game. That was amazing. And I think when you think about Pittsburgh doesn't do those types of things. Pittsburgh is a good organization for different reasons, which in a close game like this, you wonder if that's going to be the difference for Tennessee.
And by the way, he's the guy with the finger on the button. Like you say, the difference between him thinking that way and a quant. Like the quant is he's an analyst up in the booth that maybe gives a little input. Like with Vrabel actually making the calls and thinking that way. It's such a that's your advantage over Tomlin. Like Tomlin's a great coach, but he doesn't work that way.
Yeah, analytics in a way is basic. I mean, in this way, it's just common sense. It's logic, and there's some other things that. I feel like teams that we'll see teams do more of in the future at some point, probably. Like, for example, if you have the ball at your own 1 yard line, and especially if you're leading in the game or, time's not an issue, I'm just going hard count delay of game, I'm doing something to just until, invert and just because there's literally no harm to getting that
delay game of that.
Exactly. There's literally, you're free rolling right there.
And it's just looking at the asymmetries.
Right. And you know what? A team has 4th and goal at the 1 or 3rd and goal or anything and goal at the 1. I'm trying to time the count and, literally have someone Troy Polamalu over the line. Like I would just do that freaking every play unless you get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for doing it, I guess, because
leverage,
there's no automatic first down. Right. And so, and I mean, you see people, tackling offensive players in the end zone on the last play of a half or the last play of the game, situations like that where a penalty is not going to be, a penalty is actually not going to hurt you that much, but it's you don't see it enough. I don't think.
Speaking of Pittsburgh, like the coaching up a team, the fact that they intercepted that ball on 4th down last week against Philly. for like negative 50 yards. Like you got to coach. A team has to be better coached than that. Like both of those guys wanted to intercept that ball. I was hoping they'd run into each other and drop it, and they picked it up anyway. It's like it's fourth down, buddy. You just cost your team like 1 trillion yards. What are you doing here? Like there are certain teams that are just better at that sort of thing.
All right, let's move on. We've got Jacksonville Jaguars at LA Chargers. Some interest in this one early on. I think -10. I don't know how long that was up, but -10 on the Chargers down to -7.5. 1 point added onto the total. Opened up 48 on 49 at the moment. It's got to be difficult to find a reason to bet on Jacksonville, but
no, it isn't.
I support this move. I think.
Yeah.
I took it at 10. I took 10, 9.5, 8.5.
Well, we've said this a number of times, I think, on the show, right? There's a difference between a rookie quarterback being encouraging and being good, right? And Andy, you were talking about Mayfield. That's really where the leak was with Mayfield. Mayfield was a very encouraging player as a rookie and hasn't really evolved or gotten better since, right? And I think the mistake that people are going to make with Justin Herbert, and they've already made it. I mean, they were 6.5, 7 point favorites against Carolina in Week 3. The mistake that people are going to make with Herbert is looking at a very encouraging set of starts over the first few weeks and mixing that up with him being a viable option, like him being in that cluster of quarterbacks that is worth backing, consistently. I just don't see it yet. I think there are encouraging things there, but it's a bridge too far for me to say that he should be more than a touchdown favorite, even at home and even against Jacksonville.
Yeah, it was rough seeing, like, I have Detroit as a markedly lower defense, just not even prior, it's just this year than the Chargers. So I guess I was a little disappointed. I didn't have a bet on that game. I leaned Detroit. I guess all my leans are undefeated this week, which is super fun. But, I thought Jacksonville would put up more of a fight offensively. The way Detroit has played, I guess I'm going to have to look into that's another box score I haven't got too deep into because it was just a terrible game. Yeah, I make this like 6.5 on a neutral. So, yeah, the big numbers. I missed the big numbers start. Lean Jacksonville. It feels gross, but are we in, you can't be in the business of laying double digits with a rookie quarterback who's had like, 3/4 of a nice game combined. He's made a couple nice deep throws, and everyone remembers that. It's like your availability bias where you don't sit and think about like all the times he made bad reads and threw the ball away or took a 2-yard sack. You think about that one long bomb that he threw, and like that's like Herbert, yeah, he's got an arm, pretty good kid. Or at the same time, he doesn't grade out all that well, and probably shouldn't be laying this many damn points. Honestly, anything 7 and a hook, 8, all that's probably still bettable. And it feels gross to bet Jacksonville, but it felt gross to bet Cincinnati last week.
All right, well, let's get on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Las Vegas Raiders. Tampa Bay, we kind of said, did well at the weekend. Defense stood out against Green Bay. The Raiders are going to put them under some pressure as well, I think. Odds have it close, -3 on Tampa Bay. My guess is it's probably going to be the total here, I think, that interests people. No movement on 53.5 yet. Do you think we're going to see that move through the week, though, with a lean maybe on the under for this one? Rufus, I'll go over to you.
I'm going to defer on that.
Eric, I'll go over to you.
Carr and the Raiders can be a good offense when they are willing and able to throw the ball down the field, which we saw against Kansas City, which we saw against New Orleans. But I don't know if Tampa gives them that opportunity. I think Tampa is too good in the secondary. They have too much depth, and that's going to, I think, revert Carr to sort of the dump off, check down king. And the other thing about the Raiders offense, which I think, again, makes this under, I think a better play than usual is, Josh Jacobs has been extremely impressive at the running back position. I think he's one of the leaders in the league in terms of broken tackle rate, total broken tackles, yards after contact, but he's averaging less than 4 yards a carry. And they're giving him the ball a lot, I think, to justify his draft position. So that offense, unless they can be efficient throwing the ball down the field, they're not a great offense. And I don't think Tampa is going to allow them to. And as we saw yesterday, Tampa Bay in their best situation wants to be a run the ball with Ronald Jones, preserve Brady's arm. And I think all those things are conducive to Tampa Bay winning this game and the under hitting, I think.
Is it, I mean, with the gameplay that the game plan that they have, is it something that you think that they profile that team and input that from the very beginning, or is it something you can watch and maybe, I mean, if we're talking about live markets, first half, second half, like, can you watch the game and after the first couple of plays know how they're going to work with Carr? Or is it that's just the profile of the Buccaneers and you think that's going to be it from the outset?
I don't know. What do you guys think? I think when I'm watching a game and it's like it's a Derek Carr game, like I feel like it is apparent relatively quickly, like that he's just checked down Charlie. And, against Kansas City, he looks willing and able to throw the ball downfield and it's clear early on. But that might just be narrative driven.
If you can figure it out, let me know, because I would love, there's some money to be made there.
I make this almost a 4, but the market is going the other way, so I'm fine sitting here waiting. Like, if there's going to be a Tampa 2.5, I'm probably going to have to take it. I don't know where you guys have the Vegas rush defense, but I have it pretty damn low. Like, they're not going to – I love me some Rojo, and I think Tampa's going to be able to control the game. If Tampa gets a lead, this isn't a team that you can't, like we ragged on Baltimore for not putting some late drives together just to maintain a lead. Tampa Bay, obviously, go look at the second half of last night's game. Like, they're a team that can while away a lead with their running game, especially against Vegas. I don't know why this is taking steam, I guess. You got
I make it
Vegas.
2.
I mean, Vegas coming off a nice game, I guess. Like, it's a big win for them. But the Tampa Bay defense right now playing up. Look what they did to Rodgers. As far as you talk about turning Carr into Captain Checkdown, if they want to just keep everything in front of them and make him do that and put him in 3rd and 6 all the time, they'll probably be more than happy to do that. It's like you said, I think some of the narratives around their running back are a little overblown. And I don't think much of the KC defense right now. Like that was they put up a bunch of points and so be it. I don't have the KC defense that much higher. So I think this is a big step up in class for Vegas as far as the defense they played. I'm more than happy to take some cheap Tampa if it gets there.
I'm basically right with the market here. I make it 2.13. And by the way, I only have Las Vegas's rush defense so far this season. It's been 0.38 standard deviations worse than average, so fairly close to average, adjusting for the quality of who they played.
All right, well, the last one I've got down here, Chicago Bears at the LA Rams. Another win for Chicago. Pretty deceiving record, shall we say. This is obviously going to be, I think this is going to be their toughest test. They had a couple, I can't remember who it was early on in the schedule, but -5.5 on the Rams. Easy to see why the total's fairly low at 46. Is anyone interested at these odds? Think Chicago can cover or get another win?
Personally, no. I make it 7.5, and so I haven't played it yet. But I'll either be on the Rams or I won't play it in general. I didn't think the Rams were that bad last week. They were right basically middle of the pack in game grades. That was not a that was not a true 8-point difference in terms of performances. They were -1 in turnover differential. They struggled on offense to turn yards into points. And I'm looking for some data here to support my argument, but I have way too many tabs, which makes it difficult. But
I think the Rams fell back down to earth a little bit. Like, Goff is not getting nearly as much. Air yards turned into. I mean, he had a lot of drops. Like Cooper Kupp was egregious last night in terms of his ability to hang on to the ball. The hard part is like, I think Sean McVay is overrated. At this point, he does like there are games where he puts Goff into great positions to succeed, and then I wonder. I look back and say, well, is that just because they're 4-0 against the NFC East? Last night was, a lot of putting Goff, who I don't think is, a great quarterback, into third and medium situations, which are not gimmies, and that, against a Chicago defense that I think is fairly, as far as defenses are concerned, fairly good. I have a hard time thinking that, to backing LA to cover this big of a number. So I'm probably, I don't know if I can get there with Chicago. Nick Foles has been, negative EPA per pass play and really just kind of, actually worse than Trubisky in many ways. So I don't know if I can really bet this game. I don't like LA though. I think LA has some fundamental problems that have been masked over by an easy schedule so far.
Yeah, kudos to Shanny for last night because they weren't that much better of a team, and Jimmy G is still hurt. You can see he's not moving. They played you put two hats on Donald. You do the Brady in the playoffs a couple years ago where he faced all these tough rush defenses and he was getting the ball out of his hands in under a second every time. Just do quick stuff. Don't make him take these deep drops and plant. And it really masked how Jimmy G's probably still hurt. And boy, it was a hell of a first half. And then they just kind of ground out the rest of the game and got it done. But yeah, I think it wasn't indicative of the Rams are this bad team or they're some fraud. It was just a really good game plan. And Shanny just has McVay's number for some reason. The last few games have been kind of ugly at times. So I'm trying to get there on both of these teams. I'm kind of in the same boat where I make this probably pretty close. But Chicago, second straight road game, going from I'm guessing they'll probably go back to Chicago, but you go from Carolina back to Chicago out to the West Coast. And then just finally, the Rams finally getting off their nasty travel schedule. But I make it 6. I want to lean under here too. These are two of my higher rated defenses. I don't think the first half was, again, indicative of the Rams defense and how they can play. It was just good scheme, and I don't think I can put Nagy up there with Shanahan. So I'm fine looking at this under. I think it's taking a little money. Again, it's nasty doing that. Maybe it's second half under. These first half overs are $1 million and all right now. If you want an under, I think wait till halftime. I think maybe you have a better shot at it.
I feel like second half unders actually did okay. At least the ones I bet on yesterday, I guess it was. Yeah. The size didn't do as well, but the totals did okay.
Well, I think we can call it a day there. It feels like there's so much to talk about for week 7, but it's there's a lot of indecision, a lot of uncertainty going on, but just one, I guess, to keep an eye on the market and see where things move. Thanks again, Andy, Rufus, and Eric. Appreciate the time as always. I'm sure the viewers do as well, so thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Ben.
Always enjoy it.
And thank you to everyone for tuning in. The odds for week 7 of the NFL are on pinnacle.com. Check them out, make your plays, but remember to always gamble responsibly.